Welcome back to AI Today. In the last segment, I showed you how you can use a tool like Prompt Playground, improve your prompts, and get better answers out of these new models. Because fundamentally, the better your prompts are, like we've always said, the better your responses that you get from these models are going to be. But in this case, these new models, you really have to get more specific. You've got to have a prompt that is detailed, that is very solid, and otherwise you're just going to get more general stuff. It's using more and more data. If you think about it, it's using more and more data to get better answers. But man, if you give a general boil the ocean prompt, it's going to give you a general boil the ocean response now. And that means that you have to continue to adapt, right? You've got to get better with how you're prompting. You've got to get better at what you're doing. And so I wanted to show you one more time. We took the previous prompt and we improved it. We did it again, right? We wanna optimize the prompt again. I'm gonna do that one more time. This is the old scores from the previous one. We wanna optimize it one more time, see what it does, and try to show you one more level of improvement is what we're trying to do. Now again, it's going to be up to you how detailed you want to get, how much. Oh, it didn't improve very much at all with this, probably because it's pretty well, this is the old prompt. Well, I don't know what I'm talking about. Here we go. Here's the new prompt. Now look at how much more detailed this prompt is. I bet you're thinking, holy cow, I got to get that detailed with these new models. Yes, you do. I have prompts in some cases that are almost a page long, trying to get it to do exactly what I want it to do. And this kind of detail becomes very important. Now, you're starting to say, well, geez, it's going to take me almost as long to generate a prompt as it would for me to do it myself. Well, in some cases, maybe, if you get it right. But using something like the Prompt Playground, you don't have to worry about that. But again, it tells you the improvements that it made, why it did that, what its new scores are. See, we stayed about clarity scores stayed at about 65. We went up for specificity, and then our context improved pretty well. So that's not bad. But let's put them in here one more time. I want to show you guys one more time what happens. We'll put it in Sonnet. We've got it in thinking mode. Pro mode, it's going to take too long if I logged in with my other account. Something like this, it will probably take 10 to 15 minutes. That's not good TV. You guys wouldn't like that. So we'll drop it into thinking mode again and go from there. Now again, I think there's some additional settings. Don't forget to look around and play. We're going to do extended just for fun, and we're going to drop this in. Now, when Claude separates and has your prompt on one side and it's got the response on the other, there's two reasons it's doing that. One, it's because you got everything crammed in there. Two, second reason is it's getting ready to give you a long response, and we're going to just let it go. Because I always enjoy watching Claude go to work, because we're on the second chapter already. Now again, down here with GPT-5, it's thinking, it's going through. I'm curious to see how long this is going to take. I'm going to drop my playground and I'm going to bring this over so we can expand this a little bit and everybody can see a little bit more detail of how things are starting to shake out, because it's going to be very, very important. If you go in with expectations of using something that is quick and you start to get a slow response, what's the first thing you say? It's broken. It doesn't work. It's not doing this. It's not doing that. The days of immediate prompting and immediate response are really over. If you want accuracy, if you want some consistency, if you put in a big prompt and you want a great answer, then the reality is the default model is not the best model for you. It will give you quick things. There's nothing wrong with still using it for quick, less important types of activities. But if you really want to deep dive into something and you really want to be, blown away by the response that you get back from either of these models, then it takes some time. Now, how much time though? I don't know. It ranges. And you can see at least we don't want to skip it. I'm going to let it just go. At least it's going and it's thinking through things. It's percolating, right? It's saying, okay, I'm going to look at all these things, and here we go. So it took 2 minutes and 6 seconds for a response. That is an eternity for some people. Okay, but these new ones, it takes time. It just goes through. And look, our friend Claude is still responding over here now. We'll flip through it and we'll get some more information, because there's some points I want to show you that I think you'll be able to use as we expand and we start to look at how am I going to use these newer models for my business and stuff, because that's where the magic is really going to happen. So again, the consistency and the response between GPT-5 and the thinking model with the extended thinking that I put on it versus the GPT-5 and thinking model, the normal one, again, differences. Not huge this time. It's not like going from the default to the thinking model, but there are still some differences in what that looks like. And that becomes important as you're having it do things like write papers or, even double check your work, for example, or look at how you can respond to proposals or emails or whatever that is going to be like. There's some things that you'll have to make sure that you're paying attention to. Otherwise, it'll just continue to sneak it in. So again, the response, though, much more detailed. And you can see that in this case, let's go to Claude at the beginning. Give me about, oh my goodness, 3 minutes. The responses, though, for the thinking model versus with Claude and the thinking model with GPT-5 and with Claude Sonnet 4.5 are starting to get a little bit closer, right? Even to the point their headings are starting to get a little bit more accurate. Now, some of that, we drove that from that massive prompt that we put into it, right? We are much more specific in the answers, the formats that we want, the information we want it to contain, all of those things. We have tried to drive it, okay? Less general, more specific, more accuracy, more information, better information. That's why these prompts are so important. The better that you get at prompting, the more that you will get out of these new models. Okay, that's the bottom line. But you can see direct revenues. Now, Claude decides that it's going to give you a couple of more examples with that, which is great. You're looking at a whole bunch of different information. Now, in this case, though, again, with GPT-5, it's giving you similar information, different formats. That's okay. Not quite as many examples, but then deep diving into the information. And over here with Claude, it's giving you specific examples that you may or may not have asked for, but it's trying. However, when you start looking at its, responses specifically toward what you were asking it for, it groups them. It groups them a lot different. And there's good parts about that, bad parts about that. But that doesn't mean that either one is wrong. It doesn't mean that the information isn't as good. But it's fundamentally, though, you've got to just be prepared on what you're gonna get. And the important thing about that is, the newer versions, and we'll look at a couple examples in the next segment, but the different versions, the different, the ability to interact with your data and to interact with the information significantly improves with these new models, and the speed that you can do some of these things. I am not a huge, I'm not an Excel wizard. Okay, I know enough to use it. I know about the formulas. I know about the macros. I can do some of those things, but there are some wizards out there. I am not a wizard. With these two, now I am, and it's pretty impressive. Now let's get to a couple other things. So if you look at, GPT-5, it's really, standard template. It's got your retail info, it's got your main headings, it's got your subheadings, and it gives you some bullets underneath it. That's good. Nothing wrong with that, right? It goes into the markets, goes into the industries, goes into the missed revenues. That's great. You know, Pretty much what we were looking for. It did drop in a table. Okay. Now, the neat thing about the tables are they've improved so much. Remember, just a couple of weeks ago, you'd cut and paste the table from Claude into Word or into a PowerPoint, and it was just messed up. And you almost think, oh, geez, it's easier to cut and paste, and then I'll just format it the way that I need to. I'm not going to worry about it. Not anymore. Big, big, big improvements in both of these models. And I'll show you with Claude, and Claude is continuing to give examples everywhere. Nothing wrong with that though, but a lot of examples. Some are important, some are not. This is one of the areas where Claude, you've got to be careful for, because whether it's coding, whether it's asking it to do something like this, whether it's you're wanting it to look at research, and we'll do some research here in a minute too, because I want to show you some things like that are going to be really beneficial. But it's a lot of information, and we're only on chapter 2. I bet if I cut, let's do it. Why not? Let's see. I'm going to copy and paste. Let me get a Word document open. I love doing these things in real time. I love showing you guys sometimes things that bother me, and I get worried about it, and I'm curious. In this case, I want to see just how big this response is, because it seems like it's pretty massive. So I just cut and pasted it. Now look at the formats are so much improved. Oh, thank you. The tables actually look pretty decent, and if you notice, they're real tables. Okay, it didn't blast them somewhere else. So if you want to come in and you want to format them, or you want to do anything like that, you can. Look at that. Huge difference, huge time saving difference. And pretty good. Now we are at 13 pages. 13 pages it generated. Not bad. Very, very detailed, very example oriented. I don't remember in my prompt saying that I wanted quite so many examples and quite so much information, but that's okay, because there's ways that we can fix that. Now let's do the same thing with GPT-5. It's not fair if I only do it to Claude and I don't do it to GPT-5, because somebody will write in and they'll say that, oh, you didn't cut and paste it in, and so you like Claude better. No, I love both of them, quite honestly. They're good at different things, okay? So let's do this. I want to create let's insert a blank, a page break, because I don't want anybody to, and let's put in GPT-5. So the response that we got from GPT-5 is pretty much 5 pages. So we got 5 pages response from GPT-5, and we got 13 pages from Claude. Now, ask yourself, which one's better? If you only are going to base it on the size, then of course Claude would be, much better, because, oh, it's got to be twice as good because they gave me twice as much information. No, it doesn't work that way, right? It would work that way potentially if we were benchmarking something and there's a word cut and paste, who can get the most out of it type, scenario. It doesn't work that way. If you are not interested in half of the stuff that Claude gave you, it's a lesson learned, right? And it's a lesson learned because maybe we weren't quite specific enough. Maybe we needed to detail, some additional information. Maybe we just needed to tell it, don't give us so many darn examples, because that's gonna dictate a lot of times, again, how specific you get with your prompt is going to be important. Now, a trick though for you all to see, because the great thing about these newer models, they really let you start to fine tune your response while it's in there, because of it's ability to hold the context and more information around that. With this, I'm going to say, and we'll say the same thing with both. Well, no, we'll shift it because we almost have to go to our next break. But I'm going to say real quick, I'm going to say, I want you to include one specific example related to, and I'm only going to do this for the retail e-commerce because that's the one I see, to retail / e-commerce. Oh, not commerce, commerce. But keep the information and formats exactly the same in the new response. Okay, we're going to drop that in. Now, over here with Claude, we're going to do something quite similar, but we're going to just say, I only want you to include one specific example from retail and e-commerce, but keep the information exactly the same. So this is a challenge. We're going to challenge it to see how much information it's going to rewrite, because remember the old models, you get a completely different format half the time, completely different information, rearranged, turned upside down, that kind of stuff. We're gonna shift that a little bit, and we're going to take a look at it, and we'll see what happens. So we'll look at that after the break. Stay with us, though. We'll be back after some quick messages from our sponsors.